I had a way then, losing it all on my own. I had a heart then.
Hi, my name is Bethany and this is Beth Braids. Today I'll be doing a Dutch crown braid, and it's pretty easy to do since it's pretty much like all the other French braids I've done, except it's inverted and it goes all the way around the head. So for this you'll need a brush and maybe a comb and some flat pins and possibly a little elastic. So to start, you'll need to brush the hair to make sure there's no knots. So the braid starts right underneath the ear. And it's okay if it isn't perfect down there, since the rest of the braid will cover it. Since it's just the beginning, the end of it will go over top of it, so it's not the end of the world. So then you take a bit of hair and you start doing a Dutch braid. So you split into 3 pieces, and instead of going over, you go under. Then you go under. And then when you take pieces at the back, you want to try and take pieces from different spots, not all from the same spot. You don't want it to be a straight line, because then it'll have a big separation, and the effect of the Dutch crown braid is supposed to be like there's no separation. So try to take hair from different spots. So you may want to use a comb to comb this out to make sure that there's no bumps. And something that often happens is that when you're making the crown braid, it isn't equal on both sides. Like on one side, the braid is really close to the front of the head, and the other side it's further back. So to make sure to avoid that, you just have to try and keep the braid as close to the front of the face as possible. So really the hardest part about this braid is just getting it started, but once you're done that, it's really simple. You really get the hang of it. What's kind of tricky is when you get to the bottom, keeping the braid close to the bottom of the head, because it's easier to just go across here, but it looks nicer when you do it at the bottom. So just try and keep the hair pulling tight so that it can stay close to the bottom. Okay, so once you have all the hair, make sure when you continue the braid, you don't go downwards, because then when you go to bring the braid up, it'll have a bump. But if still when you're doing the braid this way, there's still a bump, it's not the end of the world, because you can just pin it down. So try and keep on doing the braid as far as you can. Even if there's a few layers starting to pop out, it's okay, you can always pin them down. So once you're at the end, you can pin it right away, but just to make sure the braid doesn't come out, I'm going to secure it with an elastic. And I'd suggest you don't use one of the big elastics like these, because then it'll look really weird when you go to pin it. Okay. So with this, you're going to bring it over the braid, and then you'll tuck it underneath. Then you can use a few pins to keep it in place. And for this side where there's the bump, you can just pin it underneath. So yeah, that's how you do the Dutch crown braid. And you can always like pin this part back to make sure it's at the same spot as on the other side. It's not just hanging down. So yeah, you can always pin these down too. But yeah, that's how you do a Dutch crown braid. Bye.